Hi, I'm Sarah Sherman. I'm a special ed teacher here in New Hampshire, and I am figuring out how to bring social skills lessons to remote learning and make fun and engaging lessons that my students can do through a Zoom meeting that still addresses their social and emotional IEP goals and social needs. So this is for students who struggle with different social skills. The point of this lesson is how to learn how to be an encourager instead of a discourager. And it's great for kids who struggle with losing, who tend to be really negative in team settings, who don't know how to work as a team or work collaboratively with partners. And this is an experiential ed kind of model where the kids are doing a challenge and then they're kind of shown the point of the lesson instead of me just telling them this is what's expected, this is what's unexpected. It really sticks in their brain in a different way. And I had good feedback on my perspective taking lesson, so I wanted to share this one as well. I did it this week with a few of my students and they really liked it. So like I said, the name of the lesson is Encourager versus Discourager. I don't tell my students that in the beginning. And the materials that you'll need is a Jenga game, those blocks that look like this, a timer, measuring tape, a piece of paper, and a marker. And then you'll ask your students ahead of time to bring a Jenga game and a piece of paper and a marker to your Zoom meeting so they have that. The way that you would set it up is when you're ready, you're telling them that you're just going to time them and see if they can build the tallest tower that they can in 30 seconds. You could do a minute for the sake of this video. I'm going to do 30 seconds. Don't give any more directions than that. That's part of this kind of lesson, is you don't want to tell them they can stack it this way or this way. You want them to kind of figure it out, and especially after a few trials, they'll discover different ways of doing it. So I would have my student go first, and then I'm telling them that I'm their teammate. And I can't obviously help them with the Jenga pieces, so I can only help them verbally to get them to build the tallest tower that they can in 30 seconds. We're on the same team, so our height at the end is going to be compared, and that's what matters of whether we win or not. If you have more than one student in your group, you can kind of set up teams and compete against each other, which is really fun. I just did it with one other student because the other one didn't show up. And so we just competed against each other. So what you would have the student do is get the Jenga pieces all set up and then be ready to kind of tilt their camera down so you can see it. You would get your timer ready, set it for 30 seconds or a minute. And then as the teacher, what you're gonna do is kind of outline some discouraging comments that you might make. So I came up with a few of my students' characteristics of the Miss Know-It-All, who thinks that their way is the right way and the best way, and that they know how to do it the best. So their comments might be like, you should put it there, or do it like this. Why aren't you listening to me? Also the negative Nancy, who is like, no, it's not like that. That's not working. It won't be high enough, and is just really stressing the person out. So while your student is building, you're going to be making these kind of discouraging comments. You don't tell them that you're doing this. You don't show them this. You just are you're discouraging them with those kind of comments. So I'm going to set the timer and just show you what it would be like. I'll be both the student and the teacher. So I'm going to set the timer, ready, set, go, build the highest tower that you can. There's the timer. The student would start building, and that's where you would be like, put it there. And of course they don't know what there means. Do it like this. Why aren't you listening to me? It's not working. Build it higher. This isn't going to be high enough. And then sometimes the students get flustered and it may even fall. And then just tell them, keep going. The timer's not over yet. Oh, this is terrible. This isn't that tall of a building. And then they keep going until the time runs out. When the timer stops, you tell them to stop, and then you ask them to measure it. So I would take my measuring tape. If your student doesn't have a measuring tape, and just to be fair as the teacher, I always just have them count how many blocks, and then I would measure it. So this one is almost 5.5 inches tall. So I would say, okay, first attempt was 5.5 inches. Now go ahead and get your paper, draw a line like this. We're gonna make a graph. So they draw the lines like this. We write first attempt on the bottom. Like that. And we write inches up on the side. And then you can have them go up and label 1, 2, up to 10. So the graph should look like this. Our first attempt was 5.5 inches, so you would show them how to do that. And you can both color, both the teacher and the student, or have all the students color it in just so they're getting that visual. So they would color it in like this. And then what we would do is we would do it again. Okay, now let's see if we can beat our time. Let's try again. I'm gonna time you again. See if you can build your tower taller. You can use a different strategy. You can do it a different way. And this time I'm going to be the encourager. So I'm gonna be a cheerleader saying things like, you got this, you can do it. I'm gonna be Miss Positive saying, nice job, good idea, you're doing awesome, and really encouraging them. And then we'll compare the results. So I'll set the timer again. I'll tilt this down so you can see. And this time I'm gonna build it a little bit differently, going up on the sides. And the whole time, this is where you would be making those positive comments. You got this, you can do it. Oh, that's a good idea, stacking them in a different way so it's a little bit higher. Oh, you could even make them stand up. Nice job staying calm, even when it's shaking. I know I'm running out of time, so I'm gonna go higher. Okay, and the timer goes off. And then we compare this, we would measure it. This one is 13.5 inches. So we're going over our graph. I'm just gonna crash this. And then we do second attempt and write that on the graph. And then do it up to 13. So then they have this visual, and everyone would do this together, and this is really messy because I'm doing it quick, but you get the idea. You can clearly see the first attempt did not have as good of success as the second attempt. So then we would talk about it as a group and do a little reflection. So we would talk about, a lot of my students need sentence starters, especially if they're in a group setting, to give feedback. So instead of saying you were mean or you know, you stressed me out, I might give them the sentence starter, it made it hard for me when, and then they finish that sentence to give the feedback. So what made it hard on the first attempt? And the students usually say things like, you stressed me out, I felt like you were getting mad at me, I couldn't think, you were distracting me. And again, getting them to use that sentence starter, it made it hard for me when you were distracting me, or it made it hard for me when you were talking and I couldn't think of my ideas. It was distracting me, that kind of stuff. Then you talk about the second way. So what made it easier for you this time? Because obviously this time was much more successful. And that's where the students can really say, oh, I felt like I was doing a good job. That helped me do better. It helped me when, and again, you could give them a sentence starter if they need it. And so we would go through that and really kind of play that out a little bit more, so they're being shown the comparison between the two, instead of me telling them, you know, when you discourage people, it hurts their feelings and it makes them not want you to be on their team. We also really talk about the whole point of this is to be a team, and did I help my team or hurt my team on the first attempt? I couldn't, you know, touch the Jenga pieces, but I could be a support. And was I supportive? Was I helpful? Or was I hurtful on this first attempt? I did more hurt because she didn't do as well. And then on the second attempt, I was more helpful. So especially for those students that don't necessarily, I don't want to say care, aren't as motivated by how their thoughts or words affect, their actions or words affect other people, they usually are still motivated to win. And so showing them, if you really want your team to win, then you want to be helpful and not hurtful. And this can really kind of help show them. This is also really good for kids with perspective taking. If you saw my last lesson that I did on perspective taking, just seeing the different strategies that you can use to stack the blocks and not always doing things the same way, especially if it's not effective. So you could kind of connect those things into it. If you want to connect it to academic lessons, you could connect it to cause and effect. And connecting it to in narrative literature, how certain actions in the story caused other consequences to happen. You could tie it into science. There's all different ways to kind of tie it into academics, but my students really like this activity. They like the building part. They definitely like seeing this. And it works so much better than telling them, like, encourage others. It makes them feel good. That's how we're part of a team. Be kind. Some of those things that we overuse but aren't really effective. This really shows them, and it's good practice. So I hope you enjoyed this lesson. These lessons are from a training that I do for teachers on building resiliency skills, and they're great for kids with special needs, but also kids with a trauma history who need experience with taking other perspectives and working collaboratively as a team and trusting others and some of those things as well. I teach those through UNH. There's going to be some coming out at the end of August, so keep an eye out if you're interested in that. And thanks for joining me. I hope you're all surviving, and take care. Thanks.